I want to welcome everyone to the regular board meeting for the Upper Canada District School Board, February 22nd, 2012, and ask that you all rise and join in the singing of Old Canada. Director, would you proceed with roll call?
Trustee Buckland.
Present.
Trustee Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Garrell.
Present.
Trustee McPherson may be calling on. Trustee McPherson. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Vice Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee McRae. Trustee Chair Petersma.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan may be calling in. Trustee Swan.
I'm present.
Present. Student Trustee Jago Howe.
Present.
Okay, thank you, Director. Approval of the agenda. Moved by Trustee McRae, seconded by Trustee Garrow. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none, I'll move now to the report from Committee of the Whole Private Session, February 18th, 2012. During this meeting, 2 contractual matters were discussed and no recommendations were brought forward. Approval of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes. Trustee Karkner, Trustee McAllister. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight is the 2012-2013 school year calendar, and invite Superintendent of School Effectiveness David Coombs to introduce that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to present the proposed calendar for 2012 and 2013 for the school year. As you see in your package there, this is an annual requirement by the Ministry of Education to seek approval of the board and then submit that approved calendar to the Ministry of Education. The calendar runs 194 instructional days. It's between September 1st and June 30th traditionally, and that there are activities designated as provincial education priorities with 4 extra days designated as board professional development days. These calendars are submitted no later than May 1st. However, if there are modified calendars to be submitted, those must be submitted by March 1st. You'll note in the past couple of years we've submitted modified calendars, and this year is no exception. You'll notice that there's quite an extensive process to seek input from various stakeholders. As you can imagine, this is an involved process beginning in the fall with the release of a proposed calendar by the Ministry of Education. We have to negotiate with various stakeholders, not the least of which is our coterminous board, and certainly with our transportation consortium, it becomes very important that we align our professional development days together. And so we've began that process a number of weeks ago. We've sought input from using the traditional forms that we've used in the past. This year we've actually used social media to a greater extent to seek out that input, and we have received some. The calendar which you see in your package has one specific item of note which I'd like to bring to your attention first off, and that is the proposal to begin the school year to August 30th. That's a professional development day, Thursday, August the 30th. The past couple of years we've run a professional development day before Labor Day weekend so that schools have an opportunity to meet with their staff and to prepare their schools adequately to receive students on the Tuesday after Labor Day. Overwhelmingly, our administrators favor this option. There are a number of reasons why. You can imagine starting up a school year is a complex and process, takes a lot of thorough preparation, but it has a lot of advantages if they are able to meet with staff to the schools and, of course, specifically to the students. There are many operational and program issues to cover to ensure that smooth startup. And just for an example, certainly safe school and emergency procedures, and very recently we've introduced police protocol, violent threat risk assessment protocols, new emergency codes. Those are the kind of things that are addressed at meetings before the beginning of school year. I have to admit, I do write the longest memo of any superintendent in the course of a year. That's my August operational memo. I'm very glad I'll be sharing that task with Superintendent Allen this coming August. But in that memo there are many operational issues which need to be addressed beforehand. And some of those are certainly safe school planning. Others are operational issues around transportation, around bus safety. Also, principals appreciate the opportunity to receive new students and to ensure that those new students are properly planned for. This is particularly important for those students with special needs who need specific transition and safety planning. I also would like to point out, as our numbers of international students grow over the years, that planning process becomes more important as well. You can imagine some of these students have been in the country for just a few days before they enter our schools for their first day of classes. Also gives an opportunity for schools to review the strategic plan of their school, to look at concrete goals which they have set for their schools for the coming year, to review and discuss program issues, assessment and evaluation, goals for professional development for the school as a whole, and so on. In short, that day is used to ensure that each student, regardless of need or circumstances, is welcomed and properly prepared for. This is an issue which needs to be addressed with our federation partners, our union partners, and we would need to proceed. We want to proceed with those partners with us with a memo of understanding, a memorandum of understanding, and that would ensure that we're moving forward with a full understanding that this is good not just for our students but also our staffs. And so we would need to seek out that letter of understanding before we move forward and submit this to the ministry as our calendar. I would point out that our coterminous board has agreed to all our PA days and will be going on the Thursday the 30th as a professional development day for their staff as well. Also, this is not without precedent. We seek out letters of understanding on numerous issues, and indeed there are a couple of public boards within the province which have done this exact same thing. So that is the school year calendar presentation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions now.
Thank you, Superintendent Coombs. Trustee Karkner?
Through you, Chair, to Superintendent Coombs, the reason for the letter of understanding is?
The ministry calendar begins on September 1st. Our contracts begin September 1st. In speaking with our Human Resources Department, would not be an issue technically. However, it is outside the ministry-mandated calendar. And so, to ensure that we have a smooth startup, we wish to seek those letters of understanding.
Well, do you anticipate getting those quite readily?
Had discussions both with ETFO and OSSTF. They've expressed concern. They haven't expressed direct opposition to that. They have expressed concern that perhaps this could be problematic from a contract standpoint. And I've certainly told them that we have approached our Human Resources Department. We don't see any issues with, for example, payroll, any kind of retroactive payroll issue that would happen to roll back to September 1st. It would roll back to Thursday the 30th. Again, we would, I can't tell you exactly what their response would be at this time.
Thank you.
Trustee McAllister?
Chair, I find this a little problematic, and it concerns me that here we are beginning the school year under the cloud of a memorandum of understanding which has yet to be negotiated. That's one concern that I have. The second one is that if I were to put on my old teacher hat, most teachers are in the school days and days ahead of the first day of school, so that they are ready, so that books are prepared, class lists are done, etc. It seems to me, looking at your list, Superintendent Coombs, of things that need to be done on that particular day, you haven't got a hope of addressing very many of them, because there's a long list. You'd have to agree to that, and it's not. It would short shrift until we would do it in one day. The question I would like to center on is the benefit to students. How is this going to benefit our students? And will it advance the cause of the 90%? Will it advance student success? If we were that day of August 31st is rather a key date from what I can see, because there are two choices. If you didn't put it there, in other words, one day ahead of the legal start of the school day, you would have two choices. One is to put it at the end of the first semester or at the end of June. Both of those dates are extremely critical, not just to teachers but as well to students, in terms of the credit rescue, the credit recovery, marking, evaluation, and not to speak of the weather, which this year wreaked havoc with our schedule in that the 2 days were lost because of exams had to be canceled. I have some serious concerns about it.
Certainly. Yeah.
Go ahead, Superintendent.
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Trustee McAllister. I guess to address the first component, I certainly would agree with you. I feel the professionalism of our teachers are unquestioned, and that teachers do come in, as a teacher myself, and as certainly we wanted to make sure that we were always prepared for day one. The issue at hand here is the fact that principals would like to gather the staff to have these kind of conversations, whether it's a staff for a staff meeting to discuss some of the operational issues, or with a student services team to discuss the needs of specific students coming in. They don't have that opportunity. I guess it could be on a voluntary basis, but to know that everyone's going to be there on the same day, it allows the principal to arrange the day around the needs of a particular school. And the needs of each school differ a little bit, but certainly I would agree the professionalism of our staff are unquestioned. As far as putting a professional development day in the middle and having two in a row, then that is problematic, if not for our secondary staff, but certainly for our elementary parents. 2 professional development days in a row in the middle of a week means extra babysitting time, extra expense out of pocket for that. But there is the option also of moving it to the end of the year, and that certainly is something that we could consider as well.
Thank you.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I'm a little confused. I certainly don't want to start a school year under a shroud of this potential memorandum of understanding, but I guess if we know that most teachers are in, then it's really shouldn't be an issue. We're just going to pay them for that day now instead of being in on their own. And if we ask the question about the litmus test about what does it do for student achievement, I guess having that day somewhere else, whether it be exam or at the end of the school year, I don't quite see the fit that that's going to have anything to advance student achievement. And my major concern, I guess, more so than anything, is that, you know, here we are working in conjunction with our coterminous board. I think there's a potential that maybe our federations may say, no, we don't want to do this from a strictly positional standpoint, even though most individual teachers would be in the school anyway. And our coterminous board may say, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this, there's no issue. So what do we do then? When our coterminous board has it, we don't have it, how do we line things up? The only alternative is to put it at the end of the school year then?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, our coterminous board is going ahead with that day on Thursday the 30th. They've made that abundantly clear. We do, if we were to move the PA day, we would then have till May 1st to make a determination of when we wanted to place that PA day. And so we would have a conversation again with our transportation consortium as well as various stakeholders. It does move the deadline forward. So yes, we could put it, the simple solution would be simply to put it at the end of the year. There is some benefit to that in the way of secondary graduations and things like that, wrapping up the school year and planning for the following year. But we would have an opportunity to discuss where the placement of that day would be. But our coterminous board has made Thursday the 30th as a day of professional development where their staffs will be expected to be in.
Trustee McDonald?
Just a further comment and a question on another line altogether. I like it. I like it on the 30th. I think it certainly says to our system, to our parents, that, you know, we're going to be prepared for the school year ahead of the game rather than having people show up to work. And a majority of them will be in the school before that first day, but there's some won't be. To make sure we're prepared for your students, for your children, ahead of that first school day, that first Tuesday after Labor Day. So I think it makes sense. It works. I like it, and I'm very hopeful that our federations are going to see the light and certainly support what we provided and also support their brothers and sisters of the Ontario Catholic School Teachers Association. My next question, though, I guess, is more long-term from a vision standpoint. Although we have to do this on an annual basis, is there anything preventing us from doing this and having a tentative calendar available for a number of years, 4 or 5 years? The reason I ask that is that one board in particular, Calgary Board of Education in particular, they publish their school calendar for the current year, obviously 2012, 2013, and beyond that they have a calendar established with tentative. So basically, there's a framework to work at. It also, I guess, allows for that opportunity to have continuous feedback as opposed to a snapshot of science. Is there anything preventing us from doing that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. From a standpoint of creating a tentative calendar, there is nothing preventing us from going ahead and doing that. The ministry will release their proposed calendar every November. They do that on an annual basis, and we would have to respond to it. We would simply need to, if we were going outside the boundary of that ministry calendar, we would simply need to apply for a modified calendar. But there is nothing preventing us from going ahead. We know when Christmas is going to land in 2015 and 2016. So.
Trustee Buckland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to see the cooperation with the Catholic Board. I see you've got 5 dates in which we do cooperate. Is that correct? And so that takes buses off the road for 5 days. Otherwise, it would have been an increased expense, inconvenience, and also for travelers. So I certainly approve this and congratulate you on achieving this level of cooperation.
So trustees, there's no interest in forcing the issue unless we get the letters of memorandum, correct? So we need the letters of memorandum. No one wants to force this. So, why don't you go get the letters?
Get the letter.
And, then come back to us. I mean, at worst, we're gonna be a few days late. I don't know whether that's a huge problem. You can send a draft calendar in, and we can vote on it in committee of the whole. We can move to, full session during committee of the whole. And if the ministry gets really strict about it, then we'll have to call a special meeting, to do that. Is everybody okay with that approach?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so, come back to us when you've had a chance to get the letters of understanding, and if not, then you'll be bringing back something for May 1st, correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on now to the debenture bylaw 14.2. Superintendent Rick Gales. He's not here, so...
I'm online, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're on the line. There you go. You want to say anything about this?
I think we went through it as a committee of the whole pretty thoroughly. You now have copies of the exact documents attached to the agenda if you have the courage to go through them. I think they're pretty extensive, and it's a normal annual process that we've now gotten into to pay for these projects funded by the ministry. So I would request that the board provide a formal approval for this bylaw.
Any questions? Or who would like to move this? Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee Richards, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve debenture bylaw 14.2 to finance Good Places to Learn Stage 3 in the amount of $353,451, Stage 4 in the amount of $558,274, and the land and demolition portions of the Van Cleek Hill Collegiate Institute construction project under capital priorities funding of $1,210,500 for a total of $2,122,225. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Or you vote, you just let me know if you're voting against it, okay, Lisa? Trustee Swan?
I'm in favor, thank you.
Thanks. All right, one of my most favorite topics of all time, bylaws. Is our next item. You have before you, as noted in the notice of motion, a number of changes. I will go through some of them. I've had a couple questions, which I will try to answer as I go through. So let's start off. We've in the definition section, we struck some definitions off, mainly because the thought was that they invited confusion. The statement "regular meeting" means any meeting was in fact really not the case, since we have committee of the whole meetings and they aren't. So it meant that you needed to go through and parse the bylaws in order to decipher what a regular meeting was. Special meeting was already defined as it states in 5.3 and 5.35, and one of the things that I believe in quite strongly is not to be repetitious in your bylaws, to not invite confusion. Special committee, again, is defined further along in the bylaws, so there was some, didn't know that there needed to be, decision was that the repetition did not help clarify. There is a change in Article 4, and it originally said that the organizational meeting started at 5:15. We've given some latitude that no earlier than and 5:15, no later than 7 p.m. I'm not really sure what the principle was in setting 5:15. All I can imagine is that it was there in case the board needed to transact business at that time. Do you know what the...
Historically, we would have the organizational meeting and then a regular board meeting right afterwards. So the regular board meetings commenced at 7, so there was a requirement to have the organizational meetings prior to 7 o'clock.
Okay. We haven't done that for the past few times, but I would suggest that we, in the discussion, that you consider leaving that option so as if you needed to have a board meeting that night. I think the practice has been that the organizational meetings occur, have they occurred always at 5:15? I guess so, they have to. I think the practice would be that we would hold them at the same time as this meeting, as our regular meetings. We've added a section on electronic voting, which is laid out in 4.26. We've also added a bylaw for the vacancy of executive officers, just clarifying how they are to be replaced. There's some cleanup in Reg 357, which was set up to allow for boards to recalculate the honorarium when the province lifted the $5,000 cap. There was a requirement that beyond the base, the multiplier amount was to be determined by the Citizens Advisory Forum, one of the two amounts, and so they needed to be written into, we were asked to put that in by law. Of course, now that that's been exercised, that is no longer required. So you'll see numerous points, Citizen Advisory Committee has been struck out. In 4.65, the title to the Student Discipline Committee is now just the Discipline Committee, so student is struck off that. In the meetings of the board, section 5 and beyond, there was some cleanup language and provisos allowed for what were seen as routine motions anyway, to allow for the suspension of meetings in July and August, and a provision to allow for the board to reschedule meetings that were set to occur during board holidays. Trustee attendance by teleconference is spelled out a little clearer. We've also dropped the requirement to serve notice. The assumption is that all meetings will be available via teleconference, and the need to give notice is no longer required. Might be nice in practice to give Lisa a heads up, but not legally a requirement. And that really reflects the practice. I don't believe at any point was anybody excluded from a meeting because they failed to give proper notice. The delivery of agendas is updated to reflect board docs. The electronic agendas, as is 9.2, with the addition of removal of the request for a recorded vote, and that all votes would be recorded. And in Article 12, movement of trustee orientation from the month of January to December, which was feedback that we received from new trustees reflecting that feedback. So those are the changes. And are there any other questions?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
My one concern after reading this was the requirement for delegations to post 9 days' notice. And I think that's quite a long amount of time, especially between our committee of the whole and a regular board meeting. If we bring something up at the committee of the whole and we're voting on it at a regular board meeting, that may not give them enough time to prepare a presentation. And then, I guess, to be more transparent and to give people opportunity to speak out so we can consider their opinions before we take a vote, I would like to ask that be reconsidered to be 7 days.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Swan. Any other comments? Trustee McDonald?
Just with an issue to the recorded vote, although I have no difficulty, the indication is that it's a recorded vote based on the input of an individual other than the person voting. Typically, in a recorded vote, you have to state your vote. And it's fine if we go to electronic means, but if we, as individuals, cannot solidify our vote, it's not a recorded vote, in the true sense. The tally. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep. And I think I didn't... What section is that? Just give me the number.
9.3 recorded voting. And then you're indicating that, I forget where the other section is, under the electronic board agenda, that you'd have members vote. All motions before the board at a regular or special meeting shall be voted on by a recorded vote via the board's electronic agenda system. And we're removing the details as to how a recorded vote is going to be conducted.
Correct.
My concern is that I have no control over how my vote is cast, other than raising my hand, and that's not truly a recorded vote. You understand where the differentiation is? There's no mistake when I say yea or nay, or in favor or opposed. When I raise my hand, it could be recorded in error.
Right. I think the setting up of this is to go to where you're going to hit a button.
I understand.
And that's going to record your vote.
We're not there, though.
We are a flick of a switch, correct? I mean, essentially, we were waiting for the bylaws to be changed to go to that. So, right now, the way the system's set up, it doesn't really allow for the way that it's being voted on. Lisa is inputting the votes, roughly, but it is not necessarily inaccurate, and as you state, the person hasn't voted. Right now, it's not a true recorded vote, although that's the way it would be interpreted by anybody looking at the system.
Yes.
So, what we're hoping to move to is when Lisa turns on the function, you're going to get a button, and you're going to hit the button, and that'll record your vote rather than a show of hands.
And that's fine. If that's able to be done as soon as this is passed, that's fine.
Yep. Trustee McCray?
Yes, through you, Chair. I just wondered, why is declaration of conflict left? What was the reason for leaving that off the regular board meeting when it's on board doc? When you have to go through the agenda, where you have to call the order, Canada, 66.00.
That's just a historical rollover. It was just never added. It was added to the agenda, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, sometime recently. It hasn't been like that forever, so.
Will we add that?
Let's make sure it's not, stated anywhere else. It's the only. Sure, I don't have any problem with adding that. Is anybody opposed to that?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other comments? Trustee McAllister?
I'm looking at Appendix A, and I would seek some clarification with regard to delegations and how often they may appear before the board. Could you help me out on that one? Please? I guess it's under number 7.
Yep.
Once a matter has been dealt with as presented, such delegation may not present the same matter for board consideration without a delay of 6 months. I'm wondering, is this fair?
Well, they have to balance the fairness of the issue and the fairness to not monopolize, right? So that's why it's there. It's there to prevent the potential from a group returning, because there's not much that we would not allow on the agenda. So the only real piece that we would have to regulate how often would be this. Now, whether, do I have an opinion on 6 months? No.
The only reason I raised the question is because what if there was new information? I would like to see a little more latitude in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I do think our public should have a right to speak to us.
I agree with Trustee McAllister as well.
I'm just wondering also if 4 months would not be perhaps more suitable.
Trustee McDonald?
Well, I think the public is certainly, the process that we have put in place for delegations coming forward is to accept, at least hear them, move on, ask administration for feedback. And I think, the 6-month window is probably put in place, and I think it's leads back to Chair Peterson's comment about monopolizing the boardroom. I think, the public has every opportunity to speak to us as individual trustees, and if something new comes forward, I think we would find ourselves potentially with a delegation that does not like the action that we've taken, to have the potential to say that something new has come forward every time. I think we need to allow a process to be undertaken. If something is that urgent that it's going to be changing the process, I think there's an ability for us as individuals to bring it forward as well, rather than having the delegation come forward. So I'm fine with the 6 months. I think we allow a lot of latitude to individuals making presentations to us. In the past, it's been one individual, not a debate. It's gotten to the point where if you show up as part of the delegation, you get a chance to talk. There's actually more interaction between the individuals. They're offering more opinions. I think we need to make sure that we have some decorum around how delegations come before us, and we conduct ourselves at the board table. I think you know, having this 6 months is satisfactory to me, and the latitude that we do allow them is acceptable for them to get their information out to us.
Okay, I'll track that as an amendment, and we'll vote on the amendment at a later date. Trustee McCray.
It's already been covered.
Okay, Trustee Kirkner.
Article 12, trustee orientation. I recall discussions whenever we first came on the board that elections for trustees are usually held in October. And I thought at the time the request was that a lot of this orientation happen before the actual declaration at the beginning of December, so that we are prepared to, any new member coming in is prepared to take the office and get right to work. I felt personally that the orientation happened after the fact, and that it should have been held prior to us taking our oath. Now, I know we're not officially board members yet, but we are, in the eyes of the municipalities, that we are elected to that position. Could we not have it happen earlier?
Trustee McDonald?
I feel like a defender of the situation tonight, but I think you touched upon a key point. You haven't, as an individual who has been elected by their members, whether their constituency, their area, whatever the case might be, surely you are a representative, but until you sign the oath, you are not officially a trustee. And I think there's some information that needs to be ensured that once the oath is signed, you obtain the office on December 1st. That's the term, the period. I think we need to follow those rules. I like the fact that it's December as opposed to January. We recognize the need to do that. Things have gotten better over the period of years. I can recall with Trustee Richards, our orientation was a binder. So, you know, I think we need to ensure that the duty as a trustee is fulfilled by signing the oath before any of that training is provided. Things can happen between election day and actually signing the paper.
I think too that there's that the generalities of being a trustee, the role, expectations are covered off by the ministry's training, and then ours is really supposed to focus more on the nuts and bolts, and you would be forced still, I would think, to have two, because there would be certain data which you just would not share necessarily because they were not trustees yet. I also am concerned too that, and this has only happened once, but witnessing once where you have a fairly high number of turnover, there's enough confusion in the public's mind and in the newly elected role's mind of who the trustee is, that I'd want to be careful that our actions by perhaps running official mandated sessions didn't confuse people even more. You're elected on the 14th or whatever of October, but you don't become a trustee until the 1st of December. And the previous trustee fulfills that role up until, so I think there's a balance, and I think I'd be more concerned if there wasn't the ministry session prior to. So there is really two. There's the one, and then ours should be a little bit more board specific, but that'd be sort of how I'd view it. Anyway, I'll throw that on as a potential amendment as well. Any other comments? Trustee McAllister.
8.35, member conduct. I'm wondering how, if this is redundant, or if not, how you will interject the new code of conduct, which we have almost completed.
So what was that number again?
8.35.
bylaw trump policy or policy trump bylaw? Policy trumps bylaw, right?
I would say bylaw. I would say, yeah, bylaw.
Trump.
Right?
Yeah.
So rules of order trump, bylaw trumps rules of order. Huh.
Bylaw is how we conduct ourselves. Policy is how the organization conducts itself.
Right, but the code of conduct's going into policy.
Simplified my explanation.
I think that, you take this out, this is, when I read this is more in meeting. This is not necessarily, this is not as broad as what you're talking about. So it's in meeting, and the bylaws speak to some of the clarification on what the chair can do inside a meeting in this particular case, or I think it's reading that way. I mean, this clause still exists in the rules of order, and so I wouldn't need, if you look at the code of conduct, you need a complaint to trigger. This really is empowering the chair to deal with it at the time, regardless of, during a meeting. The only thing you might think about might be a notwithstanding the code of conduct policy. I don't know whether that would cover it off.
Possibly mentioning that in there, the code of conduct, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, just sort of add a sentence that notwithstanding the code of conduct.
So yeah.
Or is it needed?
Code of conduct has a more long-term impact. This is a meeting by meeting kind of impact.
Yep. I've seen this in action. Maybe twice.
May I make a last comment, please?
You can make another comment. It may not be the last one. Go ahead, Trustee Swan.
In regards to delegations again, we only allow delegations 10 minutes, and 10 minutes is a long time, I know, even from campaigning to become a trustee. But we rarely have the public attend our meetings, and when we do, it's usually when we have delegations, and I think it's very important to listen to them, and we've had some very serious delegations come across in the last year, and sometimes I think 10 minutes isn't enough, and I would like to also request on top of the 7 days that I asked for, is to give them 15 minutes. What's 5 more minutes of our time to listen to something? I mean, we've had some very, very good presentations come across, and when they're well organized, and even if they aren't well organized, I think we need to listen to our constituents and hear what they think we need to do better in our board.
Just as a note, 10 minutes is what you get when you present to the House of Commons, standing committees.
But we aren't the House of Commons. We're a school board, and we're in the best interest of our students, and as our board says, a 90% graduation rate, and I think we have to listen more, and if we have these brave souls that have come forward to make these presentations, which rarely happens, I think we should give them our time, because honestly, how many delegations have we had in the year that I've been a trustee? Maybe 3? 2? So if you do have the people that come forward, give them the extra 5 so they don't have to rush it. That's just my point.
I was going to also add that standing committee at the legislature is also 10 minutes, and I also add that that includes questions for clarification, so you don't actually have 10 minutes.
Well, unfortunately, we're only the Upper Canada District School Board.
I'm, Trustee Swan, just as a note, I'm just offering that as additional information, okay? Any other comments? I think there was another one over here. Trustee Carpenter.
It's been handled with the code of conduct. That was going to be my question. So where we're fitting it in, if we're fitting it in here. It's been dealt with.
Okay. So we have lots of additions. I'm taking that everybody...
Proposed additions, right?
Proposed additions, yeah. I'm gonna vote on them. Are there any, everybody's okay then with the changes, I guess? So, we'll start with, I don't remember the exact order, but I'm gonna start with, Ann's request to add declaration of conflict of interest to the orders of business for regular meetings and committee of the whole. Seconded by? So we're amending the motion to adopt all the other changes, okay? I'm not going to go through each of the changes. I'm going to accept them as one, as the main motion. We're now making amendments to the main motion, so probably I should get a motion. I should get a main motion, so who wants to help me with that one? Trustee McCray, Trustee Buckland. So these are our amendments to the main motion. Thank you for that. So moved by Trustee McCray, seconded by, I didn't see that, Trustee McAllister, that we add declarations of conflict of interest to orders of business for regular meetings and committee of the whole. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay.
So is this a recorded vote?
Not yet. I'm going to do that one last, because you haven't voted on the main motion yet. Thanks, though, for... Trustee orientation 12. Replace, this is one change that was questioned. So, rather than every December following election of a new board, administration will offer an orientation program. The new, the amendment is... Actually, yeah, the amendment is every November following the election of a new school board, administration will offer an orientation. Moved by, who suggested that?
I did.
Trustee Carpenter, seconded by?
Trustee Swan.
All in favor?
We have debate now.
Well, I'm assuming that since there were no more comments that we've debated. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Lisa?
Swan.
Okay, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. That does not carry. Okay. Changes to the rules applying to delegations. First one is change to 9 days to 7 days. That was more of an issue when we had the paper agendas. So that technically is not, it was 9 to deal with the paper agendas, I should tell everybody that. So moving to 7 still gives you enough time. It's not a lot, but it's enough. Yeah.
Well,
anyway, I'm just raising that just so that people have that information. Somebody help me. Where is that?
Can we vote on that one first?
Yep, I'm waiting, just looking for where it says that.
Appendix A.
Appendix
At
A.
the very top, the black box. It's the sheet before that.
Oh, okay. It's the form?
Yeah.
Okay. So to change the application deadline to noon on the 7th calendar day preceding the day on which the presentation will be made.
I'd like to move it, please.
Moved by Trustee Swan, seconded by Trustee Garrow. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. That passes. Thank you. So that's 7. You want to opposed?
well, I was opposed, but I mean, I have no problem passing these things, but what's the impact on our staff, what's the ramifications from having an agenda ready for us. I think we're kind of trying to cram some stuff through that there may have some implications to. In order for us to go back and change it, requires a little bit of work. So, I know it's 2 days, but what does the 2 days do to staff? It's 7 days before our agenda, our meeting, but we actually get the agenda sent out on what?
Well, technically it's to be out on the Monday.
Yeah, 72 hours. Sunday.
My only concern would be if Director Thomas is not available to sign the document, or we don't get the paperwork or the presentation attached to the application form. That would be my only concern.
Then it's not complete, and it doesn't get on anyway. That may be because we do allow some latitude sometimes for incomplete applications. That may cut us on that. We may have to be a little bit more direct on whether we can accept them. You have any comment?
Yeah, well, so 9 days is tight. 7 days is really tight. It can be done. The fact is that we want to be transparent, but we want these people to also do the best they can. I know that other boards, this is a 14 days. It still is 14 days. It's a cycle. You have your meeting, and then you have your next meeting. It's 14 days.
Some are 0.
Yeah, yes they are. Some are instead of the back of the room and wait till the time you can ask a question.
You know what? If it doesn't work, we'll bring back a request to change it. How about that? Okay? I will, though. What you're really asking me is that can you have a chance to, after the motion is seconded, for a little bit of debate? You're asking me to do that.
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. All right, let's move on now to 6 months as opposed to 4 months. That's on Article 7 of the rules applying to delegations. Once a matter has been dealt with as presented by a delegation, such delegation may not present the same matter for board consideration without a delay of at least 4 months. Moved by Trustee McAllister, was it? Seconded by?
Trustee Swan?
Okay. Any comments?
I think it comes down to transparency again. We barely had any delegations in the year I've sat on the board, and I think we just have to be open to the public.
Okay, no other comments?
I take exception to that. I really take exception to the comments being made about transparency because it infers the previous board wasn't transparent. So, for us to say moving 2 months allows us to be transparent, come on, let's be honest, really. And by doing this we become more transparent, that means the previous board wasn't transparent whatsoever. So I take great exception to the trustees who come to this table as new trustees and insinuate that everything done before you get here.
Okay, Trustee McDonald, I don't know you can characterize all trustees. Okay? So you're characterizing that all new trustees are making that, and that's not the case.
And it was only Trustee Swan that made that comment, but...
Okay, Trustee Swan, the floor is not yours.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee McDonald, so you can proceed, but please do not not lump in all trustees.
Fair enough. I think we need to be cautious when we make comments about transparency, because transparency isn't a matter of doing what a few people want us to do. It's about conducting ourselves with character. It's about making sure that we have a process in place and we follow the process. That's transparency. Transparency isn't saying, I know you don't like 6 months, you want 4 months, let's see what we can do for you. That to me is not a situation of creating transparency. It's creating a situation of ensuring that what the last person or constituent may have talked to you about becomes an issue at the board table. I don't think moving dates creates transparency.
Trustee Buckland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think at least 6 months is adequate. There's a rhythm to education, and educational decisions do take a long time. But, for example, if the request is introduction of some new program, then it has to be studied, it has to report back to us, perhaps a committee formed, and so in most cases 6 months would be adequate time.
Trustee Swan, did you have something to add at this point?
I just think the more we can hear from our public and encourage the public to speak out to us, as a board as a whole versus individual trustees, it is better for us as a board, and I'd like to encourage it more, and I guess that's where I support Trustee McAllister in this motion.
Trustee McAllister?
Thank you, Chair. It was I who made that particular motion from 6 months to 4 months, and in my opinion, it had nothing to do with implying that there was a lack of transparency on the part of any previous board or otherwise. That is not the issue at all. The issue is whether or not we are perhaps available to our public, to our electorate, and that we are willing to listen to them once again, perhaps on the same issue. That's the only issue for me.
Okay, I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Trustee McAllister, Trustee Swan, opposed? That motion is defeated. Okay, move on now to 15 minutes. Article 3 states that time allocated shall be 10 minutes. Trustee Swan suggests 15 minutes. So I have a seconder. Trustee McAllister, any comments, questions? Trustee McCray?
My feeling is that if somebody's coming in to give a delegation, they are going to take the time to be organized, to be thorough, to decide who their spokespeople are going to be. And if they can't say it in 10 minutes, and then we are also, after that, I understand, Chair, allowing questions and discussion.
10 minutes.
I think 10 minutes is ample time to give a good presentation and to get your point across, and then followed by discussion.
May I make a second comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Trustee McCray, and Trustee McCray, thank you. I think my point is we had some people speaking about mental health issues at our board meeting, and we were good, and we never cut them off at the 10-minute mark. And we had some very a very emotional delegation. And I'd just like to make sure that that person that comes to this board to share their story, their family's story, their child's story, does not get cut off, and that they don't feel that they have to rush through their child's life in 10 minutes. And I guess that was the one thing I was really thinking of in giving them the 15. I mean, 15 minutes is a long time to speak, but just to give them that outlet to be able to do it without feeling rushed. And so that's why I'd like to, most won't use it, but I'd just like it to be there.
Trustee McCray?
I remember that meeting, and I thought that our chair handled it with great tact. And I also remember that meeting, there being a number of delegations that had to be given that evening. And, I mean, everyone has, when they get up to speak and give their delegation, it's something that's very meaningful to them. So there has to be some type of a time frame put on that. And again, I think 10 minutes is ample time.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to that? Okay, all in favor of changing the speaking time from 10 to 15 minutes? All in favor?
Trustee Swan.
1, 2, 3 opposed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's defeated. All right, thank you. We'll move on now to find the next one. That one's done. No change. That one's done. I think I got them all then. Okay. All right, thank you very much. So, the ones that, passed, do you have those? Oh, they're up. Awesome. Trustee, Carter?
Just a comment on your, on the page about the rules about delegations.
Yeah.
There's just a numbering issue there.
Covered, yeah.
We have 2 5s.
Make a better,
A stronger point, right?
cribbage hand.
Procedure, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
You got Sturgis in hand? You must now read the full motion with the amendment.
Yeah. Is anybody gonna force me to do that?
Sturgis.
Is it the will of the board that, I not do that? I am gonna highlight the... Yeah, I know. You really wanna hear me? They're not up there. Okay, so... Yeah. We are gonna need 2/3 to make the change, just so that you know. So, we're adding the declarations of conflict of interest. Change in November did not happen. We are changing to 5 to 7 days,
9 to 7.
9 to 7, and that's all that passed, right? So only 2 of the changes? Okay? So somebody move the motion to accept the draft with the 2 amendments. Trustee Garrow, seconded by Trustee McCray. Any last minute comments or questions on the motion as a whole?
You've already had a motion.
Yeah, but I can ask for more questions once it's on the table, right?
Well, you had an original motion.
Oh, that's true. Thank
You
you.
had amendments to the motion.
Well, why don't you use a point of order, Trustee Buckland?
I sure have those.
All in favor? Let me see. Everybody in favor? Okay, opposed? Trustee McAllister, Trustee Swan?
No, I'm fine.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, that passes. Thank you very much. Sorry for the double motion. Report from Committee of the Whole. We have one policy coming forward. Policy 301, social media. Any comments, questions on the Committee of the Whole report or the motion? Can I get somebody to move the adoption of policy 301? Trustee McMillan, seconded by Trustee Richards. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Report of the Special Education Advisory Committee. Trustee McCray, I have a handout here too. Oh, do you? Oh, okay.
So I did email everybody a copy of that report on the SEAC meeting held on Tuesday, February the 7th. We only had one presentation on February the 7th. It was entitled Professional Learning Partnership, and we had a number of people presenting. We had Vicki Storath from CHIO, Jennifer Hughes from Pathways, and Jacqueline Slowey and Diane Strode from the Upper Canada District School Board Autism and Applied Behavioral Analysis Coordinator. The school support program, Autism Spectrum Disorder, was a province-wide initiative by the McGuinty government in 2004, and it's funded by the Ministry of Children and Youth. And the school support's mission statement is to help basically students with autism spectrum disorder participate in school, learning, and in their communities. Within our board, it's divided into 2 regions. There's Pathways looks after Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville, and CHIO covers Prescott, Russell, and SD&G. And it's through consultation, training, and resource development they provide practical evidence and research-based strategies to support staff in their endeavors to work with the behaviors, communicational, and social skills of these students. They have provided some 277 training dates, and attendance is anywhere between 10 and 25 participants. They also run a program called Connections for Students, which started in 2010, and it's run jointly with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Children and Youth Services. And its goal is to transition students with intensive behavioral interventions to the full-time school. Our superintendent, Susan Edwards, gave her report. She clarified the memorandum that had been circulated on December the 19th entitled Categories for Exceptionality. And the broad categories for exceptionality sets out in the Act the 5 categories that are on our J reports, which is behavior, communication, intellectual, physical, and multiple. And they are designed to address a wide range of conditions that may affect children's ability. And what they're doing is they're saying that determining factors for the provisions of special education or services is not any specific diagnosis or undiagnosed medical condition, but rather the needs of the individual student based on their assessment strengths and needs. Their presentation on Beyond 21 will be at the March CIAC meeting, and we are going to combine and have 2 meetings in March and no meeting in April because Susan Edwards is going to be away. Representative presentations, Maureen Bovenue, Community Living Association of Leeds and Grenville, mentioned that they are putting together an educational resource manual thanks to Trillium Grant, which includes the Directory on Inclusion. Melinda Long mentions Parents Lifeline of Eastern Ontario, and CTV Ottawa is hosting a town hall meeting on bullying tomorrow, I guess, at CTV, and I believe, John, you're involved in that, or?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And Kathy Blair, Integration Actions for Inclusion Leeds in Grenville, talked about the workshop called Inclusion Classroom. It was held in Brockville, and it was done by educational advocate Marilyn Dolmage, and that's pretty well it. Okay.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Trustee McCray. Now move on to the Ontario Public School Board Association report. And our director...
Thank you, Chair. I have not a lot to report since we haven't met from our previous board meeting. We are meeting this coming weekend, Friday and Saturday. A number of the issues that we'll be discussing will frame around some of the most recent happenings of the government and even some peripheral to the government. We'll have some information in private session regarding labor relations updates, just to give us kind of a landscape look of what's happening across the province. We'll also get an update from a finance perspective. They'll talk about the Drummond report through this, and certainly OPSPA has provided a response to the Drummond. They provided the information to the Drummond report. They certainly provided a news release the day that the Drummond report was released. We're going to dig into the details of it and what the potential impact is from a financial standpoint. And they'll also tie the finance piece into what's expected in the next month and a half around GSNs. We'll have a verbal report on early learning program, and as well, at every meeting we have a legislative update. One of the things that Jennifer McIntyre does on a regular basis is she will send out to all trustees any legislative happenings across the province. If it's directly impacted with education, or even if it has a kind of an indirect impact on education, she'll make sure that that information gets out to trustees. As well, we'll have an update on children and youth mental health. And there is one topic that's scheduled around the copyright update. I think you'll recall in the previous meetings I talked about the copyright situation, the increase on fees that the school board will have to pay. I think it's Copyright Canada, and I can't recall if that's the exact name or not, on an annual basis. Currently the fees are small. It still has an impact on our budget, but what they're proposing will have more of a huge impact on our budget moving forward. It's been something that's been this has been going on for probably 5+ years regarding this debate around copyright. At this meeting, we'll also hear about the work of our work groups, our committees, from policy and education. One of the things moving forward was we will talk about our AGM, which is coming up on June 7th to the 9th in Thunder Bay. Sorry, 7th to the 10th in Thunder Bay. And I think one of the things that we may want to consider is, from an OPSPA standpoint, we have to have submissions in by April, and I can't recall the dates. It might even be the end of March. If proposed any constitutional changes or changes to the framework of OPSPA from a priority standpoint, constitutional bylaw amendments. It's something that has to be provided by April. We discussed it at the April Board of Directors meeting, and at that point it's determined whether it gets onto the agenda at the AGM in June, so that all membership can vote on it. In the past, an individual can do that as well. So doesn't need to be a board, it can be an individual. In the past, we have had some individuals as trustees make their own suggested amendments and would go forward to the Board of Directors and to OPSPA. And at that point, if there's the will of the Board of Directors to have it move forward, they will do that. If they see that it's something that is covered on existing work that's being conducted by OPSPA, and just to throw it out there, if we wanted to make an amendment to our priorities or something within our policy to include something on mental health. We already have a specific work associated to mental health, so the discussion will be had at the OPSPA Board of Directors in April with the representative, the director from that school board, to go back to the board and see if there's anything can be adjusted, massaged, or are they satisfactory with the fact that we already have this being handled in another way. So I think in March we should have an opportunity to discuss that as an open item. We may not have anything, but at least have the opportunity to discuss it, and then that would give me an opportunity to have a sense of the discussion around the table and advocate for that at the Board of Directors. That's about it from an agenda standpoint. We also receive updates from our regional meetings and our First Nation representative on that particular day. So that's my particular update, but certainly individuals from other committees associated with OPSPA may have something they want to add, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments, questions? Trustee Garrow?
Yeah, I will be putting something forward as the First Nations Trustee Council at the meeting. We have worked extensively on the code of conduct, as well as on teacher professional development around cultural, traditional, and the whole question, of course. I think we're up to 26 Native trustees in Ontario, and so I'll have copies of my report for the March meeting as well.
Any other comments, questions? Trustee Carpenter?
Through you, Chair, to our Director on OSPA. In your experience as Director, when they come to the table for discussion, these motions, does it have more power if it's a board motion than an individual motion?
It does.
Okay. Trustee McAllister?
Question to you, Trustee McDonald. One of the concerns that I have with regard to the ability of OPSPA to function properly is the fact that its fees, and its fee structure, at least it seems to me, is out of whack. And by that I mean, I don't think boards are paying enough to provide for the staff and the services which we as a board expect. Is there any appetite, do you think, for a motion from us?
By me, yes. I think, I would echo your comments, and you shared some great ideas with me in the past. There's not a huge appetite from other boards at the table. It's a touchy subject. It's something that the trustees look at, they can control at that table. They figure any increase is a direct impact to the operation of the board. And I think when we look at, make the argument of the savings associated to being associated with OPSPA, whether it be through energy, through some information updates, through negotiation process, there are some savings associated to it. It's hard to put a tangible number to that, though, other than the direct impact on energy savings. But it's a contentious issue. I mean, we've had boards drop out because there's been an increase. I will say, though, that there is work being done associated to the fees. There was a moratorium that was placed last year. So basically, it was frozen from a previous year's fees. And whether you were to go up or go down, you basically stayed status quo from the previous year. The work is being conducted with a committee. Mike, he did some transportation work.
Jeff Williams.
No.
Bob Williams.
No. Wayne McNally. I'll get it out. Wayne McNally, our second vice president, is working on it. So I know that there have been meetings, just by reading the second vice president's report in December and January. I will inquire as to what the status of that is. I don't see it as an agenda item on this particular board of directors meeting, but I can certainly get a feel of where they think they may be going for what they're coming back, and share that with you. I mean, I understand your argument and your point that you're making, because I would support you 100%. I would have no difficulty in bringing that forward. I'm just not certain that we get unanimous or even majority support. Unanimous, probably not. Majority, we have to work on it, I think.
What if you were to change it from a rate increase to a change in their travel policy, that rather than 100% of travel be funded, say, maybe, anything after $200, but the first $200 is a board responsibility. That would still protect your northern boards from huge expense. I mean, obviously it flips a little unfair advantage to those that live right there, but if you want to live down there, that's your own choice, I guess. And right now they're getting a free pass because their rate should be going up with the moratorium, and we're being heard anyway because ours would be going down.
That's correct.
But maybe there are alternatives to a rate increase that might be easier for boards to sell.
And I think that's a valid point. I think that's it's another way to look at their expenses. I mean, I think we always try to focus on the revenue side of things. And if we look at the expense side of things, there's not a lot that they can cut from an expense side of things, since most of the people are contract employees and are basically only called into action when they're required. So that's something that certainly is an opportunity for us to look at. I think the budget overall for OPSPA, and I want to say 10 years, and I'm going off memory, I think it's $2 million. It hasn't raised. It's been $2 million for 10 years.
Through you, Chair. Do other boards not see the value in the Ontario Public School Board? Maybe the Ontario Public School Board needs to do a better sales job.
That came up at a recent regional meeting at the Public Education Symposium, and some of the suggestions were that OSPA should get out to see member boards, and they should sell themselves. What that does, though, is it really increases the cost of OPSPA. I think it's incumbent upon us, directors and other trustees, to make sure that we share the information. OPSPA will go to boards. If we as a board said we don't agree with what you're doing, we're considering getting out, we don't see the value in OPSPA, they will come here to certainly meet with us. But I think if we just add to the requirement or a priority of OPSPA to say that you need to go out and visit boards, you need to sell yourself, we're just going to see our increases and the expenses go up, and that means something's not going to get done. And I'd rather see them do more advocating on behalf of students as opposed to advocating on behalf of themselves, to trustees.
They've made a lot of changes over the years to increase the amount that they communicate with boards. Like they put out the highlights, what's that called? That well, fast reports, but then they have that printed document that they do. That's very good at outlining their activities for the year. So I don't know that that's the problem. I think that it's, to some extent, sometimes it's the nature of trustees focused on the minutiae. Do you have any other comments?
I mean, if we do have that motion come forward, I would certainly gladly bring that forward. I will investigate into what the work that's being done as far as fees go now. They may be very reluctant to provide some of that information before it comes to the board, but I'll do my recon mission and see what I can find out and share that with you. It may not be an open session because it may not be an open opportunity, but that's something for us to consider, and maybe we frame that at our March meeting for something that we bring forward to the board.
Even if there's a low probability of it going through, I think it's an important signal.
I was just going to say it's a statement.
Yep. Okay. No further comments or questions? All right, now move on to the report of our student trustee Jacob Howe.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. Recently, I traveled to Ottawa to attend the Ontario Student Trustees Association conference. This conference, as always with OSTA conferences, was a fun and enriching experience filled with intriguing speakers and workshops. We had a chance to get together and discuss events and issues within our boards and be able to share ideas. One particular presentation that was very interesting was of an organization started by a past student trustee from the Guelph area called Speak Out. This is an organization that promotes anti-bullying, and especially homophobic bullying. They promote the annual Pink T-shirt Day, in which people who are against bullying can show their support by wearing a pink T-shirt on that day and speaking out against bullying. The upcoming Pink Day is April 11th, which I also mentioned this to the student senators at the Senate meeting, and they were very interested in running a Pink T-shirt Day at their schools as well. Student Senate was last Friday, the 17th, in Kentville, and as always, it was a great day. Stephanie Reddick attended the meeting to collect feedback from the senators in regards to the board's credo. The response from the students was very informative and offered valuable insight into the student perspective of the direction of the board. She collected several sheets of paper with different input from all the senators. Jeremy Hobbs and Sean Dooley made a presentation about the My UCDSB email service as part of the communication of the release of this service. We also sent an email to all the students that had in it the link to the My UCDSB video we shot. Elections for the student trustee for the 2012-2013 school year were held, and the upcoming student trustee for next year is Sydney Collard from Glengarry High School. Prior to the election, we showed the student trustee video, which was shot at the same time as the My UCDSB video. It also features Trustee McMillan, Chair Petersma, and Director Thomas. The purpose of the video was to educate the student senators on what exactly the student trustee position is all about. We found many of them were kind of unsure about what my role was and how it worked with the board. It actually really helped. After the video was shown, they all had a clear understanding of what it meant and what they were voting for. The plan for next year, I believe, is to show the video at the first student senate meeting, so that way we can, with the new senators coming in, we can inform them as to what the student senate does and what the student trustee does in the board, and so they can they'll be able to understand the position well enough to know if they'd like to run for student trustee for the next year. The video was also presented at the Strategic Council meeting this morning, which I was there for. Last comment here. It's a couple months away, but the next student senate meeting is April 27th. I just wanted to throw that out there so all the trustees are aware of when it is, and it'd be great to see you guys there. That's all I have.
So you were at Strategic Council?
I was there, yes.
What are the walls on that council? Do you know that you're the only trustee ever to go to Strategic Council? Very good. I'll have to find out what your secret was.
I guess I raised the bar for everybody else.
Right. You have definitely raised the bar. Trustee McDonald?
I just wondered if you had any feedback on the UCDSB. Have your friends or some of your fellow senators had any comments?
A lot of people, I find, even some of my friends at school, they kind of like overlooked the email that we sent out that said, this is what it is, and there are a lot of people who just went straight to emailing me back saying, what is this? And some comments that weren't so nice, some, it kind of goes without saying that you're going to get some people who are going to email back and saying, nobody cares, and it doesn't matter. So there were a couple emails like that, but there were also a lot of positive responses, and everybody that I've talked to and kind of explained a little more about the benefits of it, they said, oh yeah, that actually is really cool, that's actually really going to help us. So with the presentation at the Student Senate meeting to all the student senators, the hope is that now they'll have a better understanding of it, so when they go back to their schools, they can let their friends know and let their school councils know that this is what it actually does and this is how it's actually going to help for us, and hopefully through the word of mouth that's going to get around.
Thank you. What about the IT Academy? Is there any talk on that yet at this point, or is it just it's still just information that we shared, but has anybody touched upon the opportunity for Microsoft certification potentially down the road? Any buzz talk on that?
I don't think we mentioned the agreement between Microsoft and the board. I can certainly bring that up at the next Student Senate meeting if that's something we wish to.
I just wanted to see if there's any feedback. I think one of the things that's important that having you here is that if we make decisions that hopefully will have a positive impact on students, it's important that we hear some of that feedback. If it's negative too, we want to hear it, obviously. But it's thank you for sharing that. So I'm not dictating or indicating what you should or shouldn't share. I just wanted to know if you had any feedback on those two particular things.
I can, that's actually it's a good point, and I will bring that to the next Student Senate meeting.
Any other comments?
On anything?
Nope. On this?
May I just add something, Greg?
Go ahead, Trustee Swan.
I'd just like to invite all trustees to DCI on the 29th of February for a presentation by our health unit. And as we're taking initiatives on youth mental health and wellness, the health unit also is on that page, and it's having an exhibit, and it's a photo vision exhibit. They had a contest starting last September on what youth in the community, and this was all throughout Eastern Ontario, thought about what were the health issues, the wellness issues in their communities. And they've posted very interesting pictures, or they are posting very interesting pictures, and scripts by youth in our communities on what they think that the health and wellness issues are in their community. And it could be anything from homophobia to bullying to smoking to tagging. I don't know. Our student trustee might know the word for that better, when they spray paint walls. But I think it'll be a very interesting exhibit, and I think it'll be very beneficial for all of us trustees to see these pictures, to see what our youth really think in our communities.
Trustee Swan has kicked off our comment section. First, thank Jacob for Trustee Howe for his report. Any other comments from trustees? Trustee McAllister.
I wanted to mention a number of things, Chair. One is the Code of Conduct is very, very close to being prepared and completed, and my timetable is to present it to you and to the trustees at the May meeting for passage at the June meeting. That's the timetable I would envisage, but I'll leave that to you. The second thing is that the mental health focus work group is no longer the mental health focus work group. It's the Living Well focus work group. And we're taking a very positive spin at this, and work is proceeding. The third thing is, Trustee Swan alluded to the bullying issue. It certainly rings a bell in my community. I've been getting a number of calls from parents and whatnot. What I am proud to say is that I noticed, and I read the school newsletters in my ward, and I'm sure it's the same in all your wards, that all our schools are dealing with this issue head on. And there are workshops, there are contests, there are various other things going on to raise awareness. And tomorrow evening, as Trustee McCray alluded to, CTV is holding a live town hall on bullying. And I've been invited to attend. Whether they'll let me speak is a different question, but nevertheless, I'll be there. And I also wanted to just read a little bit, if I could, very briefly, from a public speech that was given by a young chap at Sweets Corners Elementary School. His name is T.J. Noakes. And he said, whenever you see bullying, don't encourage it. Just stop it. If they won't stop it when you tell them to, go get an adult. Another good idea is to not bully anybody else, even if you get bullied by someone. Plus, telling an adult isn't uncool. It's the right thing to do, so it isn't a secret from someone who can help you. Have any of you heard of Pink Shirt Day? I'm guessing you have. Pink Shirt Day is a day when everyone who believes that bullying is wrong and useless wears a pink shirt to show their support of stopping bullying. It says, hey, I'm not stupid because I'm wearing a pink shirt. This day is always the best day of the year. At least I think so. So said T.J. Noakes. So, bullying is alive, hopefully will not be alive and well, but anti-bullying strategies are.
If CTV manages to keep you off the agenda, can you find out how? Any other comments? Trustee McMillan.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I just want to make a note of a really positive situation. We've got a lot of great things happening in our schools. And it has been mentioned at this table about one of our teachers at Chimo, David Belford, and the work he is doing with autistic kids and technology. I think it's important to notice that ASCD, which is the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, has picked this up, the worldwide edition, and people around the world, hundreds of thousands of people are now reading this article, all bringing attention to Upper Canada District School Board, and particularly to David Belford. So kudos to him, and it's nice to know that the world is now seeing it.
Trustee Kirkner.
Just two things. First of all, the challenge that I issued a couple of meetings ago, I have one other trustee who has picked up on the challenge, and Anne McCray is going forward with that, and so we have a little competition here, so I hope that it's alive and well with the rest of you. You're thinking seriously about your Champions for Kids challenge. And secondly, I really appreciate the fact that Communications Department came east this past week. Mark Alder visited Rockland High School, where there was a transition carnival for the students coming into Rockland High. And I met with the principal yesterday and the parent council chair, and they said it was a great success, and the children themselves were going home and saying it was a great day, and now we know somebody in the high school, so it'll be a good thing. And Mark was there to videotape part of this, so I'm anxious to see where that ends up, and hopefully it'll be on our board website. So thanks.
Trustee Buckland, do you have something to add?
Thank you, Chair. Well, how did you know? Next week, the Cornwall Army has an opportunity to see grade 7 history and grade 12 history come together, where there'll be 5 different stations dealing with the military and what the troops are doing in Afghanistan and the war of 1812, which I vaguely remember. I will be there as a retired major telling them about the important part of the cadet system in schools in the 50s. Tuesday at the Armories in Cornwall.
So besides the board table, have you ever seen battle? Student Trustee Howe.
I just wanted to throw out a clarification for the word Trustee Swan was looking for spray painting walls. Some would call it vandalizing, others would call it graffiti, and those who are more bold would call it modern art, so.
Artistic endeavors.
Okay. Any other comments from Trustee McCray?
Yes, I want Trustee Buckland to listen to this because he loves Pakenham. And I just wanted to congratulate Ron Ferguson, our principal at Pakenham, for doing such an incredible job during Family Day. They had a fun day at the Pakenham Hills followed by a chili luncheon, I guess you could call it, at the Pakenham School, and proceeds from that will go towards our Champions for Kids.
No other comments from trustees? Trustee Garrow.
Yeah, I'd like to wish, through the chair, speedy recovery to Rick Gale. Learned about that. Hope he's doing well. Maybe he's still online, but...
You still there, SOB Gales?
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. We'll get another x-ray next week and see how it's mending.
Director.
Well, first of all, Trustee McAllister took the one we're going to talk about. That was the change of names. Trustee McMillan took the other, and Trustee McCray took the other. I still have something to say. First of all, I do agree. Ron did a great job, and to have the front page of the Globe and Mail for our board there's to be picked up worldwide was fabulous as we go through, and I think the challenge that Trustee Carter's put on is going to be really good, that everyone should get involved. I'm looking forward to bringing my singing talents to Anne McRae's Christmas concerts, and that'll be a lot of fun. I would also like to put an accent behind Ron Ferguson. About 2 months ago, I phoned Ron and I said, that Pakenham Ski Hill does so much business with our board. Do you think Family Day they could do something? He said, David, are you directing me to do something? I said, no, I think it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to show your leadership, and of course he did, and it was a wonderful day. Nancy and I were both skiing that day and went back for but I forgot to mention that she was making the best way. She was making the chili. Thank you, Terry. I'd also like to identify another member of the communications department, not Terry, but we got some good news this morning on CTV as well. And sometimes our communications department is just after the fact, and we're all passing judgment on things that could have or would have or should have. But I was watching the news this morning, CTV Ottawa, and of course, as a parent comes on and is upset about this white van traveling around and why their school board did not tell them about it. And I'm going, here we go, who is this? And I'm riding a bike, it's about 6:45, stop and listen to it, and the mother goes on about she should have been told the school board was wrong. And then what was very interesting as I kept riding my bike is a few minutes later, I came across the bottom of the screen, but Upper Canada District School Board did inform their parents. And it was quite interesting. And then I went on later, in fact, they went and cleared it up at the next news broadcast that for whatever reason, our co-chairman's board, which got the same information we had. I'd like to thank Mark, because when it first happened and began, I said to Mark, make sure that the police services know what's happening with each other. I said, remember, you have a central office, OPP, western office, you've got Smith Falls, all three different sort of police services. Do they really know what each other? And I said, just let them know, and then let's make sure we get our stuff up. And the mother who emailed in and said we got our stuff on the very first day, and so forth, and it was very positive for our board to get some good news items as they go through, so I was very pleased with that. And so I thank the communications department for being on their toes, and the liaison, David, that we've developed with our police services board. I know Ted began those things and was revered by the people, but thank you for not dropping the ball. We look really good on that, and I think our parents, they felt confident. Our school principals pay attention to the details as they go through, so thank you very much. The other thing was that today we had CTV in here today as well, and it was a CTV Kingston spent much of the morning in here, and they're doing a show on their show on Friday recognizing our Champions for Kids Foundation as a major civic thing that's just changing the communities, and it was really positive. They were in here and did interviews, and they also went down and visited one of our students who our foundation bought a flute for, and she's talking about how this exclude is taking it in different directions. Very, very positive arts focus to that CTV. Be looking for that on Friday. The next piece I'd like to do is talk to the director's annual report is ready to go. We have a teaser here. Do we have Terry? But what I'd like to share with the trustees are some dates that we're looking at for 5 of these to be in our communities. And so if you could take these down, Patty will probably send us up more officially tomorrow, but we're proposing some dates. At Cornwall on March the 20th, David and Art, we're looking at, and Peter, we're looking to do it in the morning. We've got feedback from the community. They like to do things in the morning, so we're looking at 7 a.m. at CCBS. You don't want to do things in the morning? You do. March the 20th at 7 a.m. That's a tentative date, so, and these are Smith Falls. We're also working with the Smith Falls Collegiate to do it 8 a.m. in the morning at Smith Falls. So maybe you have to open up a little later, Susan, if you can get there. At Rockland on April the 2nd at 7 p.m. Thousands Island Secondary School on April the 3rd at 7 p.m. And then we'll wrap everything up in April the 10th at Gananoque with a report there. So that's where it is. And so Terry's going to give us a bit of a tease of what it looks like. And thank you, Terry, for your hard work. Okay, you're fine there. Thanks.
May I just make a comment there?
The best way to engage students at any time is to be relevant. By taking that twist on things, kids aren't just doing something because the teacher asked them to do it. Kids are doing something that is meaningful to their lives day in and day out.
Roby's inspired me to go into human rights next year at the university.
Literacy isn't just letters. Literacy is, in fact, art.
Children find peace in the arts, and they find themselves in the arts, and they find self-expression.
And you can be honest and provide them with all the gifts that you possess. Someplace along the way, you'll see a spark.
Character is everything you do when no one's watching, and character is everything you do when everyone's watching.
Learning about these character traits has improved the kids in our school.
All of the films that we saw today were just so powerful, so much creativity in them.
Jonathan came to school after we had heard about the tsunami in Japan and said that he had an idea and he wanted to do something to help.
You're not just doing it because you think of being nice. You do it because you are nice.
Proud of them that they had achieved the ultimate goals, but I'm proud of the journey and I'm proud of the fact that they're going to leave here being somebody.
Thank you, Terry.
Well done.
Trustee Swan, did you want to add something?
Yes, just to Director Thomas's comment. Thank you very much, and I have to thank the Upper Canada District School Board for being so quick and putting out the alert in regards to the suspicious van that's out in the community. And I mean, it was in Brockville today, and as a parent of a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, I've been telling my child every day that any little bit helps. The Recorder and Times didn't hold back. The minute it happened at St. Mary's, they posted it on their website for Facebook. So I just think it was very good of our board. It was a great decision to just alert parents, to put out a safety notice, to teach parents what to say to children. I mean, I'm from the Toronto area. I've been through it, but I got a little bit, I don't know if the word's lackadaisical in this area because it's such a nice community and I felt safer. And I think this is something that I just have to reinforce with my kids and I think people have to be reminded about.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. All right, I guess because my vice chairs have packed up, they've indicated that they don't expect to hear much from me, but I'm going to disappoint them. I have a few things to add.
Should we take notes?
You certainly might want to. I want to remind everybody that we are in the midst of a Credo review. There are numerous opportunities for people to be involved, and there still is a survey online, correct? And it will be running until sometime. So get your comments in. Trustees, next Wednesday will be participating in a round table to discuss the Credo. Coming up in the not-too-distant future, the trustees will also be striking a new relationship with the strategic plan. The trustees are very proud and active in the development of this plan going back to its inception in 2003. However, the trustees have been working hard to establish a framework an accountability framework on top of this document. We have been working with the director. He's been teaching us about strategic planning and leading us through some sessions, and we will be shortly holding another session which will help focus us on establishing that framework. That framework will be made public shortly, springtime I would think. That's shortly in trustee talk. Very quickly, I want to make note that Trustee Karkner has been appointed as the trustee liaison to the Champions for Kids, and so we'll be looking forward to her updates at the board table as well. That's it for me. A motion to adjourn. Trustee McMillan, Trustee McAllister, all in favor. Opposed, that carries. See you, everyone. Thank you.